over the next 5 years, we're going to see a massive shift in how people show up on camera. And I think a lot of people are going to migrate towards this boring style content like this. I'm literally just sitting down in my living room, looking at the camera and talking and showing a window into how I view problems, how I see the future, and like what is my perception and viewpoint on specific topics. And there's a couple reasons why I think this is true because in terms of retention tactics, right? Mr. Beast is sort of like and Iman Gadzhi and all these big people have shifted creating content into this high production value sort of thing. They're trying to capture retention. And it's interesting after looking at some of these creators who both do boring content and then some who do highly productive content, it's like the retention is pretty much the same, but one has higher trust because it's a window into how they think. It's like how you think is going to be more valuable nowadays because, as information gets completely commoditized by AI, I think the only true thing is how you perceive specific things based on the information. How do you judge these things in terms of like a business perspective, right? So boring simply works nowadays. And I think that when people see high production content, they see, on Instagram or YouTube, these highly edited posts, it almost feels like it's an ad. And like subconsciously, you associate high production with someone trying to sell you something. Therefore, it's like not even as effective. Because if you contrast that to me sitting down here in my living room just talking and showing you the window into my mind and how I think about specific things, I feel like that's a lot more strategic, and I think that's the direction that we're going to be going in over the next 5 years. Because like nowadays, editing is like free. You can have like Claude do the editing for you. And so where is the value in editing for this high retention just to get someone to perceive you as someone selling something? And I think there's value in thinking about this because if you're just creating content or you're creating content for your business and you're being told by everyone else to do this high production value content, highly edited, and you got to look at the retention and all these complicated things that don't necessarily move the needle when you otherwise could have just sat down in your living room and talked about specific problems that your target client has or whoever you want to talk to has, right? And it's more than just thinking about like, oh, like you're the person behind the camera and I'm trying to get you to buy my thing. It's like, no, that's guru mentality. And we truly want to separate the guru mentality to someone who just has a skill, likes creating content, and wants to help other people, right? And people see, like you watching this, you will see right through that. If I'm making this video and there's things moving all over the screen and arrows and like key in, key out, like all this highly edited stuff, it might help with the retention, sure. But what is the perception that you're going to have of me? You're going to immediately associate all of this stuff for me trying to sell you something when that's not the case. So in reality, I just want to sit down and share my thoughts on specific topics and, provide value and insights into what's worked for me in terms of growing a brand on Instagram or starting this 30-day challenge of posting every day on YouTube. And I really want people to understand that like the direction that we're moving now, like there's just so many different things. As more things get technical and automated and super, we're moving in a direction where tech and edits and all this stuff is like, it's all gonna come together in this like technical realm where the true outlier is like literally just sitting down in front of something super raw, no edits, barely any cuts, and talking about something that's valuable. This is something that you should also think about in terms of your content journey. How can you stand out against the crowd? How can you compete in a different game than everyone else? And I think that it's like we all want to be ahead of the curve in that aspect, ahead of the game in terms of like the direction where things are going and catching trends early, right? But when you compete in an entirely different game, you have a competitive advantage because like not many other participants are doing that. And again, kind of bringing back up game theory, it's like the less participants there are, the more fruits there are for us to eat. And I think these concepts are really important and really helpful because like, I'm not just a creator who's telling you how to create. Like the more you get into like the tips and tricks and the tactics, I think the less valuable you seem because you're competing on a game that everyone else plays. Like everyone else, you can go to anybody else, a duplicate of me in a way, or a duplicate of someone else since I'm not competing in that game anymore on like tips and tricks and tactics. But there are so many people like that. And so they're all trying to give you these tips and tricks so that they build trust and they build authority, and you associate these tips and tricks and the outcomes of them to the person who gave you them. And so you're connecting the outcome that you get from the tip or the trick to the person who gave you it. Therefore, that builds that connective tissue of authority. And so it's like when you think about the tips and tricks, you're thinking about this person. And then you associate authority with that person. Therefore, if you were going to make a decision to work with someone, they would be the obvious choice. Sure, sitting in front of the camera, talking, showing your ideas, showing how you think, that is super valuable nowadays, super valuable. And that's why I'm doing it, because I think it's the best way for me to distribute the information that I have in the best way possible for you to understand, while disconnecting myself from the other people in the guru mentality of, I'm just trying to sell you something. And you could probably think that I'm a guru sitting here with the background. I mean, like I'm just sitting in my apartment, guys. Like it's not, I'm not trying to win anything here. I'm really just trying to show my thoughts on specific things. But in terms of like actually making money, I think it really comes down to trust. It's like the more, I think Ravi Abdul or whatever his name, he did this test that the average person needs to consume 7 hours of content for them to buy from, sort of being this cold lead. Then you have to think about like, what is the best way for you to actively distribute those 7 hours to someone? And what do you want to show them? What perception of you should they have and associate with you? How many videos can you get out if every video has to be highly edited and highly productive value? Probably not that much. Like if I remember editing content for my page, right? And it was just, I would get a video out a week. When this challenge that I'm doing right now, I get a video out a day because I don't have to edit anything. I just sit down and talk. When you can dive into someone else's mind and the way they think and the way they process information and how they judge specific problems, how they see things, because that sight, that visibility window that I, have you enter, those are all, it's a culmination of all the experiences that I have that shape my perspective on specific things. Therefore, it's going to be unique to me. And that you should do the same thing because you have that uniqueness. You have that uniqueness. But if you don't use that superpower, you don't use that uniqueness superpower to your advantage, and you start this highly edited content, you look at the big creators who are doing specific things and winning. Again, it's sort of subject to survivorship bias. But when you watch those people and you copy them, you get pulled into this pool of everyone else doing the exact same thing. Right. And so like you're talking about the tips, the tricks, the tactics that you use to get leads that you copied from someone else and you learned from a different program. And so you're just like regurgitating information that your ICP or ideal client would probably just say, damn, man, like I already know this stuff. The content treadmill is sort of just this like thing that you kind of have to do. Like if you want distribution, you want people to see you, you want people to see what you're offering or whatever it is. And you have to get in front of them. And there hasn't been a more powerful tool in the last forever, like ever, to exist than just creating content. Because previously people had to pay to get, in front of you. They had to pay to be on a newspaper. They had to pay to be on a billboard. They had to pay to be everywhere to get in front of you, pay to be on a truck, right? And so that insight alone is like really, really important to a lot of people because like it should unlock something in your entire brain. And we have people to say create content and do all this stuff. It's like we have these motivational people who like try to power you into creating content, like Higher Up Wellness and like all these other people who are like, there's no reason you shouldn't be creating content. Like you should be creating content. It changed my life, you know? And I think it's really interesting. Again, that sort of survivorship bias in that aspect, because it said they're basically telling you what worked for them is going to work for everybody, right? But maybe they don't have the skill, they don't have the, maybe they don't have the intellect, they don't have the resources. Some people don't even have an iPhone, but like, sure, yeah, you could argue that everyone has an iPhone, sure. But like, there are other variables that go into the fact that they succeeded. They could have a different network. They could have, great ideas and a consistent flow. They could be more creative. They have a creative mind. And so like, we're looking at survivorship bias as is right now. But sort of tying back to the core thesis here is that boring content is going to be the number one, I think it's going to be the number one content format within the next 5 years eventually. And we're already kind of seeing it with yapping content. And so I think that Instagram sort of has this like, it's sort of quicker to the trend than YouTube. And so when we see the yapping content, people just pulling out their phone and talking about specific topics, then I think that's going to be translated over to YouTube, and boring content is going to be the next thing, or at least a more powerful mechanism or distribution vehicle to, make money online versus like the high production stuff. And, I urge you to sit differently in terms of like the tactics. Like I probably like why did I shift away from tactical videos and showing you how to do specific things? Because I didn't think it was much as useful as something like this is in real time, peering into the mind of a business owner who is now accelerating his content production on YouTube. Like, mind you, I'm just some guy that figured out how to sell his expertise online, and I make money from it. I think this raw, boring content is really going to accelerate over the next 6 to 12 months, even over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, especially with AI sort of engulfing this editing, hyper editing tech, like automations, all this complicated stuff. And then we sit on the other level where the trust actually is, because that's ultimately the lever that only matters. Like, people are optimizing the wrong metric and we're optimizing the right one because we understand the problem. We understand how business works and how people buy is because they want to buy from people that have what they want, but they also trust that can get the outcome or solve the problem that they have, right? And so that's the direction where I think everything's going. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. I'll see you tomorrow if you stick around.